Tell me a little bit about the moniker radical traditionalism. Do you think that that's really apropos given that they're not very traditional?
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the point, right? I mean, in the sense that the traditional part is a misnomer. Um, it's not radical traditionalism, right? Um, it's a form of rigorism, but if today's radical traditionalists really wanted to be radically traditional,
Mhm.
right? They would insist on having their liturgy in Greek.
Right.
They would cross themselves on their forehead.
Right.
They would make all the women cover their heads and neck and face completely with a veil. Um, and not only that, they would receive the Eucharist standing up and
Yeah.
in their hand.
Right, right.
Because the early Christians did not receive the Eucharist kneeling or on the tongue. And so when someone who says, "Oh, the only proper way to receive the Eucharist is, on your knees or on your tongue," by saying that is going back to a tradition, but only a certain distance back, only a
Yeah.
thousand years back or whatever, not all the way back. So this is going back to a tradition that's actually more medieval than early Christian. Um, so it's not radical traditionalism. It's selective traditionalism or pseudo traditionalism. And so I think that when maybe we should stop calling them radical traditionalists. Maybe we should call them pseudo trads or semi trads or something. And again, these are our brothers and sisters in Christ. So I get that. But some of them are leading people astray.
Mhm.
And like I said, rigorism always leads to schism eventually. So, and the Catholic tradition is by definition the mainstream. It's that place of balance between the extremes, not the fringes.
I could only imagine a radical traditionalist being transported to the 2nd century to a church where they're receiving communion on the hand from a married priest in a liturgy that's done in Greek. I think they would be very confused.
Right. They would look at their time machine and go, wait, I didn't go back far enough. What? Yeah.
It's
Yeah, well,
just
and that's the thing. I mean, it seems to me that again, and I'm not, I've never been in this camp, so I can't speak to this from personal experience. But it seems to me that when someone says radical traditionalist, what they really mean is radical pre-Vatican IIist
yeah.
or
It
radical Tridentinist or
that
something like that.
that is a very, very helpful observation because it's certainly not necessarily tradition that they're appealing to. But that's why I always find it ironic because what people will do is they'll say, in the post-conciliar era, you have this and that liturgical innovation. And I'm thinking, wait, actually, that is restoring something to how it used to be. The innovator is the preconciliar TLM crowd. That's where you have some innovations. And so, what you have in the post-conciliar era, in some cases, is a change, certainly, but it's a change back to how things traditionally were. So while you tend to hear the post-conciliar church being accused of innovation, it's actually the accusers who are the ones who are the innovators in many of these
Yeah, yeah.
instances.
Right. But it also gets down to the question of nuance, right? So it's never an all or nothing proposition, right? The word innovation is kind of like sort of morally neutral. In other words, if you use that word, then you have to use it as you are, with the understanding that some innovations are valid and good and others are not. With my students, I tend to try and stick with terms like development versus evolution. So developments are good, but evolution sort of implies a change from one thing into another. So an evolution would be an illegitimate innovation, whereas a development would be a legitimate innovation. So again, the development of a celibate clergy in the West is a good and wise and reasonable development.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. God bless.